Hello and welcome back to another Bible reading and discussion. You tired of us yet? Oh, not.
No, surely not.
I'm not tired of it.
Oh, this is Jesus stuff, for goodness sakes.
Yes, once again, you can watch this throughout the week. You don't have to watch it all today. But for our convenience,
You want to binge? Yeah.
we're doing all live because recording and then uploading, I have to do a lot of work to try to get all that done. So
Nobody got time.
ain't nobody got time for that. So, John chapter 11, getting into the death of Lazarus. And this is where, like, sometimes the center of the book is your most important part of a book. Everything kind of comes together.
Like a chiasm of
Yeah,
sorts.
and you have bookends. So the resurrection, intro are kind of the bookends. But this is kind of your meat of what brings Jesus as the Son of God, Jesus' resurrection. The resurrection and life discourse is
The
going to be
die
huge.
is really cast now. Really. We've
Yeah.
got to kill this man.
Yes. So now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. And that's probably one of my favorite phrases in John.
Mm-hmm.
He whom you love.
Wouldn't that
We
be
always
boy?
know God loves us,
Yeah.
but like Jesus loved Lazarus specifically and personally.
Yes. Had a relationship.
We usually think of love as he just
Broad
loves
category.
he loves his
everybody.
creation. Like, I love puppies,
Yeah.
but I love my puppy,
Yeah.
right?
But we're all his puppies.
We're all his puppies, yes. So but when Jesus heard it, he said, this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, similar back to John 9. So the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So Jesus is loving all these people. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, let's go up to Judea again.
Oops, Judea?
They're trying to kill you. And so the disciples said, Rabbi, the Jews were just seeking to stone you. Are you going to go there again? Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him. So here's an interesting thing. Jesus goes to Judea to save a man's life, knowing it's going to cost him his own life.
Yes. He's putting his life in danger to save his friend that he loves.
That is the gospel.
That is it.
He doesn't just do this for
God
Lazarus.
so loved the world.
Remember, everything that he's done so far in the Gospel of John has had a spiritual undertone. Blindness, right? Lameness, all these things. Being a shepherd, Jesus wants to take our place. He knows that he must die for us to live.
And this will be the most obvious connection to that.
Yes. After saying these things, he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep. And that's a code word in a sense.
Yeah,
for
like the little girl. She's
dead.
asleep.
She's asleep. Yeah, she's dead.
Okay.
But I go to awake him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he has
Here they
already
go again.
if he's already fallen asleep, will he recover? Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus
He's
has
dead.
died.
Okay.
All right, let's take the kid gloves off for a moment. And for your sake, I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him.
So could have kept this from happening. As
Yeah.
the sisters will point out.
Yeah, and that's okay. So this is an interesting thing. I was thinking about this in one of our lessons, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was today. It's actually last night when you're talking about the discovery learning. Could God have stopped, let's say Daniel in the lion's den? Could he have ever prevented him from going in the lion's den?
Sure.
Yeah, but he had to go through it, right? Could he have stopped Moses, right, and the children of Israel from having to go through all the plagues? Yeah, but they needed to go through.
It was a trial. As James points out, those things, even though they can be unpleasant, we have to have them to get where we need to go.
Yeah, count it all joy when you suffer various trials. And, that's the wilderness concept theme in the Old Testament is when someone's like Elijah, when he goes into the wilderness, it's usually a time of testing and trial. What's your merit?
Yes. Let's get this where it needs to be. Do any of your children ever get unhappy with you?
Oh, yeah.
You sure? So in the course of their life with you, there are certain things that they would consider to be unpleasant. But if you didn't bring that unpleasant into their life, they would be undisciplined and unruly and would never be able to face the adult world successfully.
Yeah, I'm constantly having to remind Ben that I'm like not his enemy. I'm not looking for ways to just, be mean.
This isn't fun.
But like my job that God has given me is what I always say.
Get you out there in the world.
Is to help you. And, he struggles with that. He struggles. Even when I'm like, hey, buddy, go brush your teeth. I'm like, what? I'm just telling you to do a normal thing here. It's like Jesus sometimes. He's just telling them to do normal things. And they're, blah. So, all right. Now, when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in.
You forgot Thomas.
Oh, man. Okay.
16.
I'm in 16. So Thomas, called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. Which is hilarious.
In its own way.
Because they're going to go, and they are certainly not going to want to die with him.
No, in fact, when push comes to shove, off they go.
Like,
where are you? You got scattered, didn't you?
It's like every time the wild coyote looks for the roadrunner.
Yeah.
He sees just the dust, They're not really, it's one thing, and this is the thing about discipleship. It's one thing to claim something and to say you'll do something. It's another when rubber meets the road.
Talk is cheap.
Yeah, talk is cheap. So when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. He's going to stink by then.
Yeah, that's the thing. And to the Jews, because sometimes people could have the appearance of death back then.
Yeah.
Bam! Next thing you know, they're really alive, so they're a little cautious about those kind of things. But the rabbis had decided after 4 days, they are stinking dead, and they are dead.
They are dead. So he is dead. And once again, Jesus, he waits for moments that would challenge them in a way where there was no dispute. You can't dispute his miracle. You can't dispute, well, maybe Lazarus was just
when
sleeping.
He's stinking, he's not faking being dead.
Yeah. And he's the first mummy. Lazarus is the first mummy.
The first mummy?
He's going to come out of the tomb with the wrappings. Ooh. All right, sorry.
Nice one.
Yeah, I know. All right, Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off. Many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So we got these Jews, and once again...
Speaking of this time, where Jesus was, when he hears it, is almost 100 miles. And he just up and walks, because that's what they did back then.
Yeah.
They didn't have cars. They just walked all over the place.
You got to start walking. And it takes more than 1 day to walk 100 miles.
Yes, it does.
So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house.
Okay, we've had Mary and Martha before, and Mary was sort of the up front, she's chosen the good thing. And Martha's going to come to the center stage.
I love Martha's. She has a great confession.
She really does.
Just
This is a great confession. It rivals Peter's for sure.
Yeah. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. So she knows something about Jesus. You had the power to stop this.
He can do stuff.
And I'm going to tell you right now, there are times where you're wondering, you're like, God, I know you can stop this a whole lot earlier. And yet he lets you walk through it. He walks with you. He doesn't leave you by yourself. And at the end, it's almost not until afterwards you kind of sit back and go, okay, I needed that. I needed to walk all the way through that. If he would have stopped sooner, I would not have learned the lesson I needed to learn.
No, that's it. I almost lost a son. And everybody was convinced, including myself, that he was going to die. In fact, I still prayed though, but I was like, this is so improbable. I even questioned myself praying. He's alive.
Yeah. And you just got to rejoice at those things.
Yep.
And you thank God, you grow closer to God because of those things. So, but even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. And this reminds you all the way back of the John 3, the John 3 with Nicodemus, in a sense. I'm telling you to be born again. What do you mean? What? I got to go back to my mother's womb.
What?
And Martha, but she understands something very significant. I know he'll rise again, like in the last day.
That was a belief commonly held, except for the Sadducees, that there was a resurrection.
There was a resurrection. Now, of course, everyone who dies is, but I'm talking about, I want Lazarus now. I want him still here. I need him longer. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. And that's so significant. The fact that Jesus is saying, that life is found in me. And we don't talk about this enough, but we talk about baptism for salvation, for one day to go to heaven. When you are raised,
Walk in a newness of life
you are living a resurrected life right now.
until you die.
Until you die, you are resurrected, like Lazarus. You are
You're born from above, born again, all that stuff.
Yeah. So whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world.
Strong stuff there, Martha. No, Jesus does paradoxical things. This isn't the only place he does it, not the only place in John he does it. But you can be alive but dead.
Yeah.
And you can be dead but alive.
Or you can see but be blind.
You're blind.
And be
Or
blind but
you
see. Now it's your turn to read.
She said to him, Yes, Lord, I have believed that you're the Christ. I'll repeat this because it's so good. The Christ, the Son of God, even he who comes into the world. When she had said this, she went away and called Mary, her sister, saying secretly, The teacher is here and is calling for you. She's back with the mourners and everybody. And when she heard it, she got up quickly and was coming to him. You mentioned the thing, you had a conversation with one of your daughters, and she said, you know, the Bible always talks about men, and we always talk about men. And there is a certain amount of that. A certain amount of it is that we use language that can apply and should apply to both men and women, to only apply to men in here. That's another story. But these are some amazing women here.
Yeah, I love series that focus on like the strong women in the Bible.
And there's a bunch of them.
There's a ton of them.
In fact, they're the ones that are supporting Jesus to let him do what he does.
I love it.
They're the ones who go to the tomb when the rest of them are scared to death, locked in their houses. We talk about laughter when Abraham and Sarah they're going to have a child, and we talk about that Sarah laughs. Well, Abraham falls down on the ground and laughs, much more skeptical than his wife. Anyway, back to our story.
Yeah.
These are great women. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha met him. Then the Jews who were with her in the house and consoling her went. They saw that Mary got up quickly and went out. They followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to weep there, sort of like people do today, visiting gravesites. Therefore, when Mary came where Jesus was, she saw him and she fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, it's the same thing. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, it gets me.
Yeah.
He was also deeply moved in spirit and troubled. He said, Where have you laid him? They said to him, Come and see. And Jesus wept. Jesus feels things. This is his friend. These people are suffering real sadness because of his loss. And this isn't just a detached, I'm going to raise him up. He can't help but get caught up in that.
Oh, we found out last night that one of our members here had passed away, who'd been sick for a while. Mm-hmm. And I always think of this scene when I think about that Jesus is there with all the loved ones who are weeping. Don't think that Jesus doesn't weep for people, that he's not deeply involved in his creation still today, to the point where, because, you know, a lot of times we try to spin it as death being victory, and it is, right? For Christians, death is victory. But death is still the punishment of sin. Death is a curse. Death is not actually, death is not natural.
Yeah,
in the beginning, God created death for us to live forever. Sin is what brought death into this world. That's why we hate it so much. That's why it hurts us, no matter how much
the big anomaly.
We believe that God will raise those again, even with Martha. Martha says to Jesus, I know he'll be raised in the last day, but I wanted you to stop his physical death. I wanted more time with him.
And when I've had all kind of people try to talk about what Jesus wept means. It means he was sad.
Why can't we just give him that?
Just let it be what it is. It's okay. It's better that it's that way.
I mean, and it reminds me of in Matthew 23 at the end where he basically weeps over Jerusalem. He can be saddened by things.
People that are going to kill him. He's sad. So the Jews were saying, see how he loved him. And that's because he did.
Yeah.
But some of them said, could not this man who opened the eyes of a blind man have kept this man also from dying? You've got folks like that all the time. They can really bum you out. But Jesus, he's just going to go on with it. So Jesus, again, being deeply moved within, came to the tomb. That was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, remove the stone. Martha, the sister of the deceased, said to him, Lord, by this time there'll be a stench. And he says, has been dead for 4 days. And Jesus said to her, did I not say to you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they removed the stone. Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but because of the people standing around, I said it, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said these things, he cried out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. Marshall Keeble, preacher from a long time ago, used to say if he hadn't said Lazarus, the whole graveyard would have emptied. The man who had died came forth, bound hand and foot in wrappings, and face was wrapped around with a cloth. Jesus does what he can do, and everybody else can pitch in and do what they can do. Unbind him and let him go.
Told you he's the first mummy.
Mm-hmm. He's the first mummy.
You know, this Jesus, when he prays to God and he says, I thank you that you heard me, it's a done deal. Jesus hasn't even prayed the prayer yet, and he knows that God's already going to hear the prayer.
He says that, he thanks God for giving him everything before he gives it to him, because it's a done deal.
Yeah, and you know that's the thing about thankfulness. Like people, you know, a lot of times when they come around for food, well, you gotta thank God for it. Well, like if you live a thankful life, you know God has already given it to you. It's not that you can't pray, and I do pray with my kids and try to let them know
But
to be
your
thankful.
whole lifestyle says it.
But I'm already, before I even eat my first bite, before I even pray my prayer, I know God has given it to me. And the psalmists are littered with, Lord, I know you hear me.
Yeah, whatever we have.
Or incline your ear to me. You know, listen to me. And so I think a lot of our prayers need to be a recognition.
Very personal, very trusting.
And a recognition that God is listening as a good father.
Therefore, many of the Jews who came to Mary and saw that what he had done believed in him. So this is building up, and that's going to cause a lot of problems. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them the things which Jesus had done.
So this
Snitches.
is snitches get stitches, right? This is the John 5 guy who was raised, the lame man walked. They're using this as an opportunity to gain some influence with the Pharisees.
How spiritually blind and dead are they?
It makes me so mad
Yes.
that good things happen and people take good things. Because as preachers,
Yeah, but
you know, as preachers, and I'm not going to get on a preacher moping thing for a second, but I want to make a statement. You know, sometimes everybody analyzes everything that you do. And you could do something good, and you know in your heart you're trying to do the right thing, and somebody somewhere will demonize you, make you look evil, give you false motives. And this helps me remind me that Jesus promised us that even when you do good, you would have enemies.
In a place I once preached many years ago, I wrote a bulletin article titled, "What is Edwin Up To?" So that I could just look, here's what I'm up to. This is it.
Because people assume so many things. And they always assume the worst. It's not like they're, but you know, 1 Corinthians 13 tells us that love what?
Believes.
Love believes all things. First believe that
Put
if
the
I
best
give,
blush on it.
you know, if I've given you tons of reasons to not believe, or Jesus has given you tons of reasons to think.
Then go for it, but no. Therefore, the chief priests and Pharisees, and the priests are Sadducees. The Pharisees are, well, they're Pharisees. These people are starting to come together because of a common enemy. Convened a council, and we're saying, what are we doing? In other words, we're not doing very well stopping this man. But this man is performing many signs. So they acknowledge that. If we let him go on like this, all men will believe in him. And the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. That's the real problem they have. But one of them, Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, said to them, you know nothing at all, nor do you take into account that it is expedient for you that one man die for the people, and that the whole nation must perish. In other words, he says, unknowing what he's really saying, he says, the answer is pretty simple. We just kill him.
There's irony in this.
Yes.
You know, but being the high priest, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation, and he would. He's
But
thinking he
not
would
the way he
die
thought.
instead of the nation be killed because of his blasphemies. And yet, Jesus actually dies so that the nation may be saved.
Yes. So ironic that the one thing that Caiaphas wants to avoid is the one thing he ought not to really be thinking about so much. He needs to be thinking about what Jesus can do if he dies for everybody. But that's far from his thinking.
This reminds me of the passage in 2 Peter where it talks about even the prophets didn't fully understand what they were talking about when they were talking about the Christ. He's not fully getting it.
He really, really, really doesn't get it. But being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus was going to die for the nation. And not for the nation only, but in order that he might also gather together into one the children of God who are scattered abroad.
This goes back to those sheep. I have sheep.
Yeah, have sheep in Ephesians and things like that. So from that day on, they planned together to kill him. Therefore, Jesus no longer continued to walk publicly among the Jews. He's getting close to time, but went away from there to the country near the wilderness into a city called Ephraim, and there he stayed with his disciples. Now, the Passover of the Jews was near. This is the big one. This is the last one. Many went up to Jerusalem out of the country before the Passover to purify themselves. So they were seeking out Jesus and were saying to one another as they stood in the temple, "What do you think? That he will not come to the feast at all?" Now the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that if anyone knew where he was to report it so that they might seize him.
You know, that he will not come to the feast at all, really what they're asking is, because Passover was one of the feasts the Jews, good Jews, came to the Passover.
They're going to be there.
So if he doesn't come,
We got him.
he doesn't come, we got him. And if he comes, we got him. So there was still,
And yet they didn't got him.
he comes, they're going to get him, but he's then going to get them. And to get them in a good way, because I really hope, I'm hopeful that a lot of these Pharisees and Sadducees, like Nicodemus, like Paul, later in life, after Acts and the kingdom and starts spreading, that they would accept it. We understand that a lot of the religious leaders don't.
True.
But
the cumulative effect would have hopefully, surely, got that aha, I can't fight this anymore.
yeah, I mean, this man died for them, gave up his life for them, and they would still reject it. And it just, that to me blows my mind.
In Acts 2, when he says you crucified him, he's talking to people
Yeah.
who were yelling, "Crucify him." He's talking to people who assented to that. He's talking to people who thought he was a blasphemer, and now they realize, wait a minute, he was the Messiah.
I mean, and not only the Messiah, they had come to believe that he was actually God, and that they killed God.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine
God
being
with us. What
like,
have we done?
we killed
it's the
God.
Worst, I know.
Can you understand why they were so convicted and so convinced that nothing they had, they saw none of their own possessions as anything worthy of keeping to themselves, that they were willing to share? Look what they have done.
Let's lay it all down. We can't hold anything back.
And that ought to be our lives.
Because we are guilty too.
Yeah. So, all right, there's John chapter 11. That's actually going to be our last one for the week. We might cut down to 3 a week.
We might do it to give you more time to reflect.
There are some people who are behind, and the more we do,
More
the
chance
further
to
they
catch
get behind. So I got 2 weeks of vacation coming up. So Edwin's going to be taking over the next couple chapters if he
Watch
can
out.
go live. So if there's anything that messes up, it's all his fault.
It's my fault. It's my fault.
But even, so anyway, there's John chapter 11. Plot to kill Jesus, it's thickening. And this is
It's just, they can't wait any longer. It's gotten out of hand. Too many people are going over to his side.
yeah, so the plan's been set. It will be done. But ultimately, the Lamb of God will be the Savior of the world.
It succeeded, only it failed.
Yeah, and yet succeeded God's plan. So we love you.
Yes, we do.
God bless.